Okay, thank you very much. I know there are more questions, but I think we need to move on and invite Trond to give the last presentation on Shipping 2020 concept. Please, Trond. It's coming, it's coming.
No, not that one.
Like now, yes.
It's the wrong one.
The wrong one, is it? Oh, yes. Yeah, while we're waiting, that's a good idea. I'm sure there are other questions people wanted to raise. I mean, one of them, it seems to me, which is interesting, I don't know if, Yad, you've considered, the retrofitting aspect of this convention, I think, is without precedent. And you're talking about a requirement for close to 50,000 merchant vessels to be fitted with ballast water treatment systems over a relatively short period of time. I mean, the significance, the disruptive aspects of that are potentially enormous. Have you done any work on looking at how this process is going to unfold and the level of disruption it's likely to cause?
Yeah, and this is a constant, I completely agree, and this is a constant subject of debate, both at the IMO, and also we try in the NV to bring up the subject that it's very difficult, and it takes, I don't think it will be a problem with yard capacity or treatment systems capacity. I think mainly we will not have enough marine engineers to design this. Designing a retrofit, how it will work, how to put it together, the engineering behind it, that will be a major issue. The approval of that and all of it. This is where I see the bottleneck mainly. And but the IMO is looking into that. They are working with this correspondence group to try to solve it. But it's quite a political. It's very political agenda there, and so we technically we do not have so much to say.
Thank you. I was asked to speak a little bit about market update and the Shipping 2020 report. Normally we do the Shipping 2020 report in 45 minutes, and now I'm going to talk to market in addition, so it's going to be a little bit challenging. But how much time do we have to complete by? 20 minutes? Okay, I'll do my best. When it comes to the market, I think this is no surprise to any of you that basically the fleet or the supply is far outpacing trade. So that is the main challenge we have in the main markets. And I will not try to be a prophet and tell you when the turning point is, because I think it's far better analysts than me out there to try to predict that. And of course now we are really in a depression for some markets, and not at least maybe tanker and bulker market where earnings are less than operational cost. And of course this will be a huge challenge also going forward with all these rules and regulations coming into force, where you have to put all this new technology on board. In addition, we have another challenge, and that is that in 2006-07, that is when it all went wrong, when we ordered all the ships. So now also we have a shipyard capacity that is around these levels. So if we predict a new building order level around 100 million deadweight tons, and we have a shipbuilding capacity that is 2 to 2.5 times higher. So there also we have a challenge. So it's a challenge in several parts of the supply chain. And of course, then you see the shipyards are now getting really hungry for new buildings, of course. So in the shipping cycle, so we have been through this many times, of course, but I guess now we are still here, where new building prices and second-hand values still fall, and demand is much higher than supply, and then you will, of course, have the low charter rates. So it's only when, and now we are actually in a situation, I'll come back to that a little bit, where we are under tonnaging. So then it's kind of the sign that we are kind of on a way, hopefully, to the green. So here is just very briefly on shipbuilding, new building prices. It's still edging down a bit. Second-hand values have dropped a lot, but still they're edging down. And I think we have not really seen the bottom yet, personally, I think, because we're not going into a situation where a lot of distressed assets are being purchased by new owners or private equity and so on. So still, second-hand values is edging down. Kind of the good news in this is that the new building order book is now really falling. So now it stands on 22%, I think, of the existing fleet, which is actually historically not very high. It's maybe more on an average basis. So that is kind of the good news. So, like I said, this is not a demand problem. It's more a supply problem. So world growth is growing fairly healthy in pretty much all markets. The trouble is basically that too many ships are being supplied to the market. So, but of course, when the order book falls, eventually, at some point in time, you will come into a better balance, and then the markets will pick up again. I guess the question everybody is asking, when will that be? Yeah, and if you look at financing, who are now, where are you putting your money? You see, this is 2007, I believe, where you have, where you have the enormous investment into ships. Now it's much lower, and also the money now doesn't go really into the commercial shipping, but into offshore. So here you see the contracting in 2012, where most of the money here is drill ships, FPSOs, and other types of shipping related to offshore. And then you have some segments are like LNG, LPG, and cruise, ro-ro. So now it's not much investment into the main segments. I think that was pretty much what I wanted to say on the market. Now I'd rather like to talk about shipping 2020. And I think for all of you, this is a very good piece of work. And from many of the questions that you had also earlier, maybe you don't find the answers, but you find a lot of good thinking and analysis in this report on pretty much all these issues. So it's worthwhile reading. In this study, we don't really try to predict the future. We don't try to come up with accurate answers because I think it's possible. But with all these uncertainties that we will see now ahead of us, what we have done is we have created kind of 4 scenarios. And in these 4 scenarios, try to model the world fleet and what could then potentially happen, in particular when it comes to technology uptake, and also what will be kind of the driving forces behind. So shipping, basically what it is to try to give an answer on possible future developments and give indication of what type of technologies will be adopted by the industry in 2020. And hopefully by this, it will be useful for all of you in whatever decision-making process that you have. So it's kind of 3 issues that is the baseline for this report. It's, of course, the demand for transport, which is, of course, then very much linked to economic growth. And it's also all these rules and regulations we have already talked about in a bit length. And the last and not least is fuel trends. You know, what will the potential fuel be, what will the fuel price be for the different alternatives, is also be very important for also technology uptake. So I think many ship owners then will face these questions again. What type of ballast water, well, when should I install ballast water system? How should I meet the sulfur regulation, LNG, scrubbers, or switching fuel? Do I need a Tier 3 compliant vessel enabling global operation? Because Tier 3 is only for ECA, but still some ship owner might like to install NOx reducing technology to be able to trade in ECA, or that they are afraid that the second-hand value of the vessel might be lower. And then the last one is really on energy efficiency. What is my cost benefit to really maybe invest more upfront in a vessel than just to comply with the requirements that are ahead of you? So it's quite big, difficult questions to be answered. So then what we have done is we have made 4 scenarios. I will come back to the 4 scenarios. And for each of the scenarios, we have attached all these rules and regulations. And we have attached fuel trends or price and mixture for the different scenarios. And also we have come with some estimates on how the world economy will be going forward, and then the demand for transport. And then we have taken 25 technology trends as we know it today, put into the model, and actually attached for every ship and ship owner investment profile. And then all of this has gone into a model, and then we have the results for these 4 scenarios. So here are the scenarios. It's one scenario, we have to, on the horizontal axis here, you see you have regulatory and stakeholder pressure. So on one side here, high pressure, and the other side, low pressure. And then you have economic growth, high or low, on the vertical axis. So then if you say the scenario A here, that's really the high growth scenario. So then you are kind of back to 2006-07 scenario. You will have a high fuel price for pretty much all the different alternatives. But also you have relatively little stakeholder pressure. So that means you will comply with the rules and regulation that we know of, but not much more will come. And then you have the scenario B. It's still a high growth scenario, but here you have a higher stakeholder pressure. So for example, we have put in that CO2 will have a cost. And in addition, in this scenario, we have also put in that LNG will decouple from the oil price. And then we have a scenario C here. It's a low growth scenario. You have low fuel prices in general, but still MGO relatively is rather high because of the global sulfur requirements that will enter into force. And then you have a scenario D, which is a low growth scenario. And here we have put in that LNG is really decoupling from HFO to see effect of that. I think it's only 30% of the HFO price. And also you have little stakeholder pressure, so we will not see much more regulation from what we know today. So we assessed 25 technologies, the ones we know are effective for these different regulations. I will not spend time on that now, but anyway, I think if you see the list, you will probably know most of them. And then also we did a ship owner survey. So we asked them, what is your main motivation or barrier to implement technology? And then not surprisingly, they say main motivation will be comply with current and future rules and regulations, or become more fuel efficient. The main barrier is mainly cost. Cost of installation or cost in operation. And then also we asked in the same survey, what is your investment preference? So then you see here that most ship owners, they say they will have a payback time between 0 and 5 years. It's only very few. It's only about 8% that have a longer payback period from, let's say, 5 to 10 years. And then also we asked who pays for the fuels. So you will see here that it's about 25% of the ship owner pay for the fuel themselves. And then a big percentage you will have the charterer pay for, and 35% they pay for all the fuel. And we have around 10%. They say we have no idea who pays the fuel. It's a little bit scary. Let's see. There you go. Yes. And then also we ask them, which type of technology do you see that you will, or are you familiar with, and tested, and also the likelihood to implement technology. So then you see the top one is, again, low sulfur fuel, distillate fuel, shaft generator, ballast water system, waste heat recovery here on familiarity or tested. And then likelihood of implementing is also ballast water treatment system, low sulfur fuel, efficiency improvement, hull shape optimization for new buildings. So it's anyway very closely linked to the regulations that will come. And then also important for this study is, because of the ECA requirements, how much time will vessel actually spend in ECA? And here you see that, Here you see actually that is approximately 40% of the world fleet will enter the ECAs in North America or Europe, but half of these will only spend 5% of the time. So you can say that for the global fleet, ECA is not really a big driver for technology uptake. So then what we did, this model, I cannot go through how the model in detail works now, but we made a representative sample of the world fleet. I think basically it's more than 50,000 vessels is in the model. And then we assign for each of the vessels an investment profile. And then we assign technologies and fuel type decision per ship for the different scenarios. Depending on demand for transport, we added new buildings into the fleet per year, and then also scrapping. And then also we say the technologies goes into the model, and as the technology mature, we will also reduce the price for the technologies as the year passes. And then you will go around here, 2012, 13, 14, 15, and so on, when the new regulation will come into force, and eventually you have the results. So then I will show you the findings. So finding number one. So here you see up here are the different scenarios. And you see in the scenario A, that is a scenario where the ballast water convention, like Judd talked about, the global one, will actually not enter into force. But still, based on this model here, we'll see about half the world fleet will still adopt the ballast water treatment system because of basically the US convention. And then, of course, if the convention globally comes into force, pretty much the whole fleet will have to adopt a ballast water treatment system, and then by 2020, pretty much the whole world fleet will have to adopt it. We have a scenario B here also, where it goes a little bit slower, and that is when the global or the convention will take quite some time to come into force, so it will delay the process just a little bit. Then number two, on LNG. So we see in this model here that at least one of 10 new buildings will probably then run by, in the next 8 years, be delivered with a gas-fueled engine. And then from now on and until 2019, it's pretty much the LNG price that is the main contributing factor. Then after 2020 is really the phase 2 of the EDI, and also this global sulfur limit that is the main driving factor. And here you see the scenario D, and you will see that when you come closer to 2020, you will see a much higher uptake. If you take a very optimistic scenario, B, that is the scenario where LNG price have really decoupled from oil price or from HMO, and MGO will be considerably higher. You will see a much higher uptake. And of course, then it will be assumption that also the infrastructure will come in place. And then in that scenario, then you will have, you will have about 4,000 new buildings and about 1,000 retrofits in this next 8 years that will run on an LNG engine. And then in addition, you will see a lot, which is not in the analysis, is all the coastal traffic, like you see in Norway, for example, on ferries, tugs, offshore supply. That comes in addition. So then finding number 3 is on scrubbers. So because there are so few ships that spend more than 30% time in ECA, there will, of course, be vessels that will adopt a scrubber, but we don't see that it will be a mass uptake. If it will be really a mass uptake of scrubber, it will be because of the global requirements that comes in 2020. But then, so you see here the scenario A, that is where the 2020 or the global sulfur limit regulation will be postponed until 2025. And then you see a very limited uptake of scrubbers. In the other scenarios is where the global sulfur limit requirement will be adopted or implemented by 2020. And then you will see a quite considerable number of scrubber, but also a variable degree depending on scenario on LNG and MGO as a fuel. When it comes to NOx reducing technologies, so now this is basically to comply with the Tier 3 requirements in ECA. So, of course, there are some differences between these different scenarios. You will see here scenario B again. So that can be solved either by NOx reducing technology, and of course LNG engine will comply with these requirements. So then in the scenario B, you will see a higher uptake of LNG, like I just mentioned. In the other scenario, it's variable degree on uptake of this technology. So I think here, really one of the questions that will remain unanswered now is, how will a ship owner opt for a Tier 3 engine? Even though it's not planned to be an ECA. Because if you're going to sell the vessel or you have a potential at some point in time going into ECA, maybe some owners will still install the technology. Yeah. Number 5, this is on distillates. So that is, of course, also very closely linked to the global sulfur limit requirement. You see in scenario A, there, basically, you will run still on HFO. That's the light blue one here. And you will have, to some extent, MGO, and that will probably basically be for an ECA area. In the other scenarios, then you will have a considerable uptake of MGO because of this global sulfur requirement. So now the distillate demand is about 30 million tons. And then when the requirements in ECA comes in 2015, we see that it will be increased to 45 million tons, which we believe is relatively achievable. But of course, if you're coming into these volumes, that will really mean that you will have probably heavy investments at refineries if you're going to supply those kind of volumes. The last finding is on energy efficiency or energy reductions. So we see that based on this model here, that the EDI is actually a driver for more than half of this reduction. But what you will see here also, it's very little difference between the different scenarios, because basically the different phases will come into place, but the ones you will have quite many ship owners, I think, still, because of the high fuel price, that will invest maybe even more than what a EDI will predict. But since anyway the fuel price is so high, that the different scenario doesn't really affect the uptake. And also what we have in this one, we have not included operational measures. So this is just technology put on board. So now I'm coming to my last couple of slides. So again, coming back to the questions, when should I install a ballast water treatment system? And should I meet the sulfur regulation through LNG fuel engine scrubbers and so on? I think really, again, what has been debated here a little bit is delivery capacity and when the technologies is mature will be a really important, I think, to answer those questions. And of course, this one here, how you should meet the global sulfur regulations. And so of course, when you have ICA, we have already talked about the 3 alternatives. And similarly, for the global regulation coming into force in 2020 or 25, you will have kind of a similar, you will have the same different alternatives, but then really it will depend on the price of HVO compared to MGO. Has it been invested in the infrastructure? What will be the price of LNGB? Is the infrastructure in place? So I think that question is remain to be seen how that will be complied with. Yeah, and then you have the 2 last we are here with NOx Tier 3 compliant vessel, and then the global operation, and then what is my cost benefit going beyond compliance. So I think what will really drive that one is again how the market will react. Will these vessels have a higher second-hand value? And also, how will the charter market react by, for example, differentiation on the earnings of this vessel? I think that was my last slide. I think I skipped that one. Then I have some questions. This is actually, in this study, we have had quite a few questions about market going forward. For example, what is the effect of the shale gas situation in the US, shale oil and shale gas, and also what if the Northern Sea route comes stronger into place in this period? So if you are going to operate in the Northern Sea route, even though it's ice-free, these are the conditions that you are likely to meet. So I think these are, you will have icing if you have, it's cold water, you're freezing water on the vessel, and so for those of you operating vessels in the Northern Sea route, that is what you have to deal with at that point in time. So then I have finished. So if you have any questions.